Do you ever have that feeling that no matter what you do in your business, in your family, like nothing that you can do is going to make your situation better? That's not burnout. That's actually a thing called learned helplessness. I've actually had it before. And if you're not careful, that can wreck you if you let it. Hey, I'm Ryan, and I love working with quality humans who want to make a big impact, especially like founders and CEOs, the people who feel stuck in the grind of trying to scale a business. So this is something I don't really talk about often, but back in the 2010s, I was working in one of the most toxic, most dysfunctional environments you could ever imagine. It was just constant drama, complaining. Nobody trusted each other. It was awful. And if you've never been in an environment like this, or even if you have, you probably know how hard it is to kind of work through it. And I definitely tried. I tried to fix things. I tried to give people the benefit of the doubt. I tried to lead, but nothing would work. The dynamic was just too toxic. So eventually I gave up. I think they would call that quiet quitting today. I would show up to the meetings, but I would just be quiet and keep my head down, and I would just like survive. I wasn't really operating anymore in this dynamic where you're trying to do good or bad. It was just like, I'm trying to just pick the route that had the least amount of pain and discomfort. And if you have like my personality type, like stuff like that just crushes me. In fact, the dynamic was like so bad and so toxic. I remember one day pulling into my parking spot, looking at the entrance that I have to go into, and being jealous of people in prison because they could get their meals, they could watch their TV, and they didn't have to worry about all of the shenanigans and nonsense that I was getting ready to go into. Like, that's how crazy it is when you feel this way. That response is actually what psychologists call learned helplessness. And it comes from this crazy study back in the 60s and 70s, back when scientific experiments weren't exactly ethical. They would put these dogs in these electrified cages, and they would train these dogs at first like, hey, when you feel the electric current, you can push this button and you could stop the shock. But then what would happen is these researchers would eventually stop the button from working. They would still provide the current. They would still charge the cage, and the dog would just learn to stop trying. It wouldn't even try to push the button. It would just kind of wince and take the shock. Even when they would open the door to the cage, the dog would just like lay there and take it. This sounds cruel, but here's the part that's crazy is I have met so many leaders who have lived this. Like, this is their normal day. CEOs, COOs, CMOs, like founders who've been burned so many times. They just stop believing that change is possible. Like, nothing they can do will stop the agony and pain that they feel. So they stop trying. Like, these people stop trying to fix culture. They stop trying to improve systems. They stop trying to lead with courage. They just take the pain. But here's the crazy part. Learned helplessness is learned, which also means it can be unlearned. You don't have to stay stuck in a business that feels like a trap. And you don't have to keep choosing between two bad options. Like, you don't have to just keep quiet in order to survive. Look, I'm not a therapist and I'm not a psychologist, but what I can do is help leaders build businesses that don't rely on them for everything. Businesses that don't feel like cages, and businesses that give clarity and margin and freedom again. So look, if you feel stuck, maybe it's time we had a conversation, because that cage, it isn't locked. You just need help seeing the way out.